to all the world, and I'm going to go very rapidly here. The message went out. My purpose today is to show you God gave to this people guidance. And a little later here we see how today the scientific world says, how did you know? And at the same time, too many of our people are accepting this counterfeit that has no history in the nations it comes from of being of any benefit. Over thousands of years of use. And yet it's accepted as if an answer to prayer. I have been exposing this for 20 years now. But it is spreading in the churches faster than I can even begin to deal with it. In the most insidious ways. And you get a little discouraged. Recently I contacted 4 others that have also been, I didn't know in the past that they were doing the same, and they didn't know anybody else was. I've been all across Russia, the Ukraine, been into Romania, Serbia, India, England, spreading this message. And in the United States and Canada, that we'll be doing tomorrow. And I've written books on it, but haven't dented it. So recently I formed a little group of these ones that have been doing this. We've come together to try to pool our resources, and we're going to be inviting anybody who wants to be on a network, an email network. We will send out information. All you have to do is receive it and be able to share it when you see the need about you. That's simple, and tomorrow we'll be handing out papers that has the address where you can put your name, and send it and say, I want to be on the network. Cost you nothing. There's nothing you have to do. We need thousands of people doing this rather than 5 of us. We're not touching it. And most of the people in this don't intend to, have no idea they're being deceived. They have good intentions. And I would say all of them. Let's move forward here. Time is running out. The dental school came along, and so that's where Dale took his training. And they started it just the year before I started medical school. Then we now have about 6 medical schools, I think 6 or 7 around the world. The Loma Linda name came to be the Loma University instead of the College of Medical Evangelists. You see the picture, you're very well acquainted. Most of the time I'm showing this to people that don't live right near it. So these are more interest to you than they are to you because you're very well acquainted. I want to show you where I worked at a mission hospital. This was paradise, literally. Of all the places in the world to go on a mission, how I was so blessed to be privileged to go to Phuket, Thailand. There used to be a program on TV, The Rich and the Famous, by an Englishman. He had this TV program, and he listed 3 most exotic places on earth. Phuket was one of them, and it's an island. And so I had the privilege. I did the surgery for this hospital for a period of time when the regular surgeon, board certified surgeon they had, was away for a year, and so I had learned enough surgery that I came, and I had a classmate there that was the other doctor. So I spent some time here. Quite an interesting place. Well, I was working, and there downtown. The clinic was 3 miles away from the hospital. This is the clinic downtown, a big old mansion. And in the waiting room there was an open well that had a case around it. But when the kids were sick, they'd stand in there and put the bucket down, bring up the water and splash it, and had a drain. So right in the waiting room, the kids got the water treatment. It was interesting. And in your room, when you'd see the patients, they would put 7 or 8 at a time. Each one heard the other's problems. And when you finished those, then they brought another room full in, and that's the way you practiced. One time we had a flood there, and all of this was about 18 inches of water. I sat at my desk, water up to my knees, and we just proceeded as nothing had happened. I'll show you a little surgery. My son was taking these pictures. He was 12 years old, and I'm doing a cesarean section, and I first had to do the anesthesia, so I was doing a spinal for the anesthesia. And my son, he had never been in the operating room before, and he had my movie camera at that point. He was taking these pictures. But with doing that spinal tap, something happened. He went down, but I saved my camera on that. And so you're going to see some pictures with a little blurry. His nerves still hadn't come back too good as we did these stills. We're opening up the tummy. Did a lot of cesarean sections here. Did a lot of deliveries too. There we got the baby coming. I was sucking out the juices of the throat. Now there's a lady, I took a leg off. She had a lot of diabetes there, and she had a gangrene of the lower leg, so I had to remove the leg. Here's a common problem in that part of the world. Probably smoking, betel nut chewing, and so forth interferes during the development phase, and you get these cleft lips. That was the next day after surgery. I'd never seen one of these done, and I think the Lord blessed and held my hand too, and it really came out fairly nice. That's a big scab on there right at the moment. Let's look back. Oops, that went the wrong way. There we go. But we want to look at that open gap. Well, we'll just go ahead. It's interesting. I found a book at the hospital there that had a half a page, a little tiny book, had a half a page on how to do these surgeries. I'd never seen one done, and I did several. And the book was written in 7 languages scattered around the world. And interesting, it had been written by a surgeon in Portland, Oregon, who came and oftentimes did some heavy surgeries for me. And here I was across the world learning to do this type of surgery with my friend's instructions. So when I came home, I shared with him my thanks. All right, that's in Penang. On the way home from this being in Phuket, I stopped at Penang, had a classmate that was a surgeon there. And then this is a hospital given to our church down in Florida. This was the Disneyland area. This was given to be operated by the church. My nephew was CEO at the time. That's why I have that picture. But simply showing the spread of this work around the world that you're all acquainted with. And I just wanted to, when we can get this to work, there we are. The health foods we've already talked about. We will go on here. World influence, yes. But the greatest influence on the world from Loma Linda is yet to come. Here's the children that have had new hearts, and they had an anniversary there, and the surgeon is there with them. This was some years ago. And this certainly has been a wonderful thing that's happened, and the heart team that's traveled. But nothing has influenced the world relevant to Loma Linda like the Adventist health studies. Nothing compares. It has alerted the world to a better way. And across Europe now, I attended the World Congress of Vegetarianism a year ago. They have it every 5 years. 800 scientists from around the world, 34 nations represented there. Primarily coming together because of the findings of these Adventist health studies. Simple things. There was a hospital built in China. I had the opportunity to even talk in this, give a little presentation in this place once. That was built by a rich Chinese man in his hometown in China. Forget the name of the town here. And the Adventists were asked to operate it. You know about those particular things. And so why I have these in here is for people around the world who have not known these particulars, and I share them with them. I was way in the inner parts of Russia showing these pictures, talking about the nursing schools. And afterwards, the members of the church come up, how can our students go to those schools? How can they go to the nursing schools? There's such a desire. This was way in the heart of Russia that it took several hours of driving from the place. Dr. McFarland started the Stop Smoking. The Stop Smoking program that he started was teaching people to stop smoking by the power of God. That was the source of his success in that program. Now, some of the other methods might have equal success. People stop smoking. But in this one, they were learning the power was not within self. It was the power of God.
Amen.
And when that got changed, I quit. Many doctors quit at that point when they changed that program because it went the other way. Dr. Harding was a tremendous man, one of the great giants of our medical school through the days. Let's get the next one. Okay, you remember Dr. Register? Also. And this is showing the representation of the little book for the convention a year ago. And I had a paper up here, it disappeared. Recently there was in the medical journals an article summarizing the Adventist work through the ages by Dr. Sabate. And it got into the medical journals, and it was showing the success and the interest of the world due to the Adventist health studies. So as we look, this is at that study a year ago, our blessings came through following what God gave, even though maybe only half of us followed it very strictly or very closely. And when they take these statistics of our church showing that equals the long-lived people in the world, our members, we have included people that have been a short-time Adventist as well as a long-time Adventist, where the others, all of these places that they evaluated, they had lived their whole lives in that pattern. And so we were at a disadvantage a bit, but still equaled the best. And this is all from the blessings of God for the people that have chosen to follow what He has given to us. But it's more important than that. It has to do with our eternal destiny. And the things we're going to be showing and exposing tomorrow, we're told unequivocally from the Bible, as well as Spirit of Prophecy, will cost us our eternal life. If we even give the least countenance, it says to them. The least countenance. It's that important. But it's difficult to seem to present this to get people to want to hear about it. And so here we'll finish out here with this particular chart that shows at the far end the vegetarian Seventh-day Adventist has the longest lifespan there. And Okinawa was a few months more, but that did not include this group of people from age 40 onward that followed a strict vegetarian way, actually had a longer lifespan than the people of Okinawa. But there wasn't a big enough number of them to be able to be statistically significant to put it into the medical journals and so forth. So, because it just wasn't. To God be the glory. And so I hope you've enjoyed this review of the history of how it came down through the time. There was many tough times in there. But as to where we are today, and I want to enlist everybody to be missionaries on exposing the counterfeit. Come tomorrow, learn more. And Dale, yes?
Give a quick overview of your escape from communism.
That would be hard to do a quick one. What he's referring to, in 2005, I was on an island north of Japan, an island of Russia. And due to some mix-up in our visas, and due to some people that didn't want the Adventists succeeding on the island, there was a little university there being run by the Adventists, and I was over there helping in evangelism. And we got there by the wrong visas. We went on visitors' visa instead of the ones that allow you to do certain things. We didn't know the difference. And ordinarily, when we applied for visas, they would get there maybe the day before we would leave, and you'd put all these thousands of dollars of tickets and so forth, and you didn't know if you're going to get your visas in time to get on the plane. So we heard, we can go get the visitors' visas for real quick. That was a mistake. And so when we got there and ongoing, the KGB, the medical department, educational department, and the immigration department all descended upon us in the evangelism program one night in the middle of the night, as we were conducting it. They didn't arrest us then, but they told everybody had to go home. But the immigration officer told me I could continue my presentations. I was doing a health education. So I did the next 2 nights, but boy, suddenly the KGB and the others descended again. Evidently, the immigration officer didn't clue them in that he told me I could stay and do my work, because he had sent me a letter previously saying I could do this, but I hadn't used it to get my visa. Well, so they followed us home that night instead of approaching us right in the middle of the auditorium, in the front of the audience. And we got to the university. It was in the middle of a bunch of big apartment houses, all of them lit up, but the university house, 3 stories high, in a big building, black, totally black. The lights had gone out. I found my way up to the 3rd floor, and where my room was across from the president's room, and he had a candle in his room, but he didn't know I had arrived yet. And as soon as I went into this room behind me, I'd felt my way through this pitch black building to get there. 3 individuals went into the president's. I could see their shadows. And this was the internal KGB, be like the FBI here. And they were looking for me, and there was 2 others that had been with me, Steve Hinton and his wife, Bay. And they came to arrest us. And they were going to arrest me for practicing medicine without a license, and all I do was teaching health education. Well, I stayed back in my room, and I listened, and for an hour there was literally shouting. The president, who was our Adventist minister, who was president of the university, was fighting with these men, arguing. And he says, "Arrest me, not them." And they got a phone call. They were ordered to go through the whole building and to open every room. It was now getting around 11:30 or so. And the immigration officer, since he had really kind of protected me and said it could go ahead, he was with them, but he hadn't told them, and he wasn't telling them that he had given me permission. And he was trying to save his own job. And so knowing this, we didn't complain, but when the others went home finally, because he says, "Hey, it's all black, we can't see, there's no lights," he stayed behind a little bit, and he told the President Morar, he says, "Get him out of here. Get him out of here." And how do you do that? You're on an island. And only 1 plane a day, and we'd come in by plane. Well, there was a ferry. We got in the car that night, and at 2:30 in the morning we lit at another little fishing village along the coast where a ferry goes to the mainland. And the next morning we got on a ferry, traveled 14 hours on the ferry, lit on the mainland, and then after 6 hours of waiting, we picked up a taxi. Took us 14 hours through the mountains of snow, not even seeing a shed for 7 hours of travel. And then we got to an airport. I had been there 3 years earlier at this airport, and my wife and I had been doing some lecturing on that end of the country. And we got on the plane and got home. But the KGB came and stayed for 3 days at the university. But one thing I forgot to tell you. After they left, the lights came on that night. They had gone off. Nobody could find. The maintenance man was looking, can find a reason. When they left, they came on. I knew why. Yeah. And so through the years, one thinks about, the protections we get, we don't always recognize. But certainly that time. I got home. Flew to Korea, and then on home. And then I got an email from somebody in Russia that one of the faculty in the school had contacted the lady in Russia that knew me and had an email, wanted to find out if I'd got home. And I did. And that wasn't until a year later I learned from the president that they had stayed for 3 days waiting there for us to come back. And so I would probably be still there on that. Probably a $50,000 fine, or who knows, that they were going to make it. The basic thing is they didn't want this Adventist school succeeding. When the president took it over, it had been operated by the Korean Seoul University for some years, and it had lost its way. Tobacco was being used in the classrooms. Pork was in the dining hall. Swearing and there's no Adventist teachers. And they had given it then to the Russian division. This friend of mine, Morar, that came to be the principal, the president, he took over and began to change it. It had a music department for 4 years, and they had a band, and they had a language. It was a big language school. They had 800 students. And during this turmoil, and they eventually closed it, but as they were trying to close them, he still built it up to 1,300 students for the next year. And he came in, and it was no money in the bank, and all the teachers, they had 60 teachers who were supposed to be paid. And in a year and a half, he turned that around and had a profit through. And but he's here in the United States now. He lost his health over it. His hair turned, he was black as could be, turned total gray that year. He went through, as he said, it's like falling into a wolf's den. There were old communists there that wanted to get rid of the institution. Eventually, the government just took the building and everything. It had been all paid for, but they just took it over, kicked everybody out. So that it had been a seminary for quite a few years. A lot of ministers had been trained there in Russia from there. All right, and I've gone a little longer than I should have. But Dale, don't ask questions. Don't give me jobs to do on there. Our Father, today we're grateful for the privilege of sharing the history of the blessings that you have given to these people. And as members, we want to be faithful stewards of what you've given us responsibilities for. We want to be able to share with others those deceptions that will cost us our eternal lives if we accept them. And so, bring everybody back tomorrow and more, that we may share with them the key that unlocked the door for me in the understanding of this situation. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you all.